Okay, perfect. Thank you to everybody who is just joining us today for this webinar on the proposed changes to the NHR regime. I think this is going to be a very interesting one. It's something that a lot of people have had questions about, a lot of people have had concerns about. And so I'm really, really glad that we have got an expert to talk us through everything that has been happening, because it can be a little hard to keep up to date with what's going on, especially if you're relying on information from Facebook and blogs and YouTubes and other sources. It feels like you're getting lots of little bits of information and you don't know exactly what is correct. But we have Sandra Gomes Pinto from her law firm today, who's going to be explaining everything. She has read the actual law, so she knows what she is talking about. You will be getting the real information today. She's going to be explaining exactly what has been proposed and whether it's likely to happen, and how these changes might potentially affect you and what you should be thinking about with regards to your move to Portugal. A lot of people will have been on a webinar before with Sandra, but I'm just going to get her to introduce herself, her law firm, and her background in law in Portugal and internationally, just so that we can get a little feel for her company and what she does. So Sandra, welcome, and perhaps you could just tell me a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to work with you and to collaborate with you. So I'm a lawyer for 30 years in Portugal. I'm absolutely passionate for what I do. I was a partner of a big firm for 17 years. I had an intensive work in litigation and arbitration, mainly in real estate and construction, but all related to foreign investment. These last 7 years, we do also litigation and arbitration in high complex cases, but we do focus and have a team very focused on making life smoother for those moving to Portugal. Both from a legal point of view, we want to make sure there are no errors and everything goes well with our client's application, and also from a relocation point of view, I want people are looking for a better life in a different country, and we want to make sure that their dreams are fulfilled and they do find the country of their dreams, and that their expectations are fulfilled and they have a good trip and a good smooth relocation to Portugal. This is our goal.
Okay, fantastic. And Sandra has helped a lot of Portugalist readers. I've lost count of just how many there are. But I know that anybody who has been on a webinar with Sandra before has always commented how much they've enjoyed being able to get real, detailed, factual information. So hopefully we will have more of that today. I can see some questions are coming in. There's a Q&A section at the bottom of the webinar page, or it might be on your right. So if you have a question, especially one about NHR, because that's really what we're going to focus on today, you can put it in the chat. If it is about something else, you can put it in the chat as well. Although the ones we read out will probably be a bit more focused on NHR, but Sandra and her wonderful team will be answering all of them. So I don't want any questions to go unanswered. There's about 300 people so far. I know there's more than 700 registered, so that is a very impressive turnout. And it shows just how important this NHR is to people, because it really is something that people want to get right and to understand about. Taxes can be a very, very confusing topic, even in your own country, never mind in another country. So, Sandra, this announcement, it came a little bit out of the blue, or at least I thought so.
We already were hearing rumors about this, and we had the recent experience of the golden visa. So for us, we already knew something was coming. I think this announcement may be a little bit worried, and I do think the foreigners coming here are very important for Portuguese and could be a great opportunity for the country to develop itself and to have new interesting business and be a more modern and innovative country, and to overcome a little bit of our bureaucracy and to become more efficient. So I do not see foreigners as a problem. And I think it may be a little bit populistic to make that the problems of the country are somehow related to the foreigners that are moving here. I think the majority of the population enjoys having foreigners here and do understand that could be a major opportunity for development on the country and very important in these challenging times. So I think this announcement may be scary for some foreigners that are thinking about moving here, but I think it's important to be clear and to analyze their situation specifically, because I have been talking in the last days with dozens of people who were trying to do their application of the NHR. I understood that most of the people didn't really understand the NHR and didn't really understand how the NHR could be beneficial for them and how it would impact their tax situation. Perhaps here I will also not give a 100% clear question, because I think that question and the answer to that concrete question, which is the most important one, depends many times on the specific situation of the person and even the country the person is in. For instance, the states many times tax people based on citizenship and not residency. So each country and each convention to avoid double taxation and each specific income, type of income a person or a family has will make it different how the NHR will impact them. I would say that in general terms, the NHR, it was a system created in 2009 that entered into force in 2012. Initially, according to international tax law, people normally, as a general rule, pay taxes in respect to their pension where a person resides. And Portugal, as a possible residential country, in order to attract foreigners, especially retirees and pensioners, said those who move here will be totally exempted from paying taxes in respect to their pension in a 10-year period. And so this was a major advantage and attracted mainly Europeans. I would say that the most that come were the French, that were having a heavy taxation on their pension. So coming to Portugal and having a total exemption of paying taxes in respect to their pension was a major advantage. Afterwards, and I think also due to oppression from the European Union in 2019, Portugal, in respect to this the scheme of taxation in respect to pensions, said no, Portugal will tax 10%, which is still a very low tax rate, for a period of 10 years. But it'll only tax 10% if the person is not already being taxed at least at 10% or more in the country that sources, that pays this pension. So, for instance, many Americans that are already paying 10% in the US, when they come with this system, they should not pay a penny here because they are already paying. So I would say that for pensionists and retirees, the NHR is a great benefit. But from our practice and our conversations with all the people that have come to us, I think for US people, from Americans, from Canadians, from British, their main motivation is not the taxation. And they are not coming because of the NHR. The NHR is just a plus in terms of a specific taxation. But many of these people are willing to give back to the country, so they don't care to pay taxes if they understand that the taxes are used for a social benefit, for healthcare, for other useful things for the country. So I would say the NHR was very good. It's a pity that it's gone. I would say it's mainly good for pensionists, but if people are looking to lead a better life in a safer country, and safety is a major issue, the late news the news we have been watching and hearing show us how important it is to be safe. And the horror stories I have heard from Americans saying, you know what, Sandra, we didn't see kids playing on playgrounds in the US anymore. People leave their kids out as less as possible. They think people are imprisoned in their own homes with the kids because they fear their safety. Another psychology told me, you don't know, you don't have to prepare your kids for a shooting at school because this is not a normal reality here. So I believe people safety is a major incentive to come to Portugal. And as Portugal still ranks third in terms of safety worldwide, I think this is a major motive. But also because this is an historical, a democratic country where people are tolerant, family is still an important value. I think this is a country with great opportunities in terms of business, technology, innovative projects. I think we just should lead perhaps the government. It's not changing the NHR that will make a big impact, perhaps helping the middle class, reducing the taxes for the middle class, creating housing opportunities for the young Portuguese. I think that would be a better solution than saying to end the NHR. But that thing being said, I would say that at this time, it's still possible to apply. So those who already are visa holders should take the advantage to apply. At this moment, the government clarified that those who already applied are totally safe for a 10-year period. It is possible to apply until the 31st of December. It is for those who, by the 31st of December, are visa holders, they could apply until the 31st of March of 2024. This is not yet a law, but this is what is written in the bill. I would say also that it's important to tell that the government also announced another NHR for those who will be connected with scientific research and innovative projects. At this point, we don't know exactly the practical requirements for that, but shortly, I think by the end of November, we will know a little bit more about that. So the government is announcing additional benefits, especially related to innovative projects and scientific research, which I think makes sense for a modern country. So I think that also for foreigners moving here, that will create in the future additional benefits, additional tax benefits that for sure should be quite important, because those persons will also benefit for a 20% flat tax rate in respect to the income generated in Portugal. So those related to scientific research and innovative projects under certain conditions that we will know when this law enters into force and is duly regulated. I'm talking. Do you have me to explain anything that you find particularly useful, James?
Yes. Well, let's just start with a very basic overview as well, just in case there are some people that don't understand the NHR, because I think there's sometimes some confusion about whether it's a visa itself or whether if you don't have NHR, are you going to be taxed very highly?
I will continue to explain the NHR. I will continue with the tax benefits. So
okay.
Those who are pensionist holders and adopt Portugal as a country of residency, those will benefit from a flat tax rate of 10%, which worldwide is very good. If they are not already paying taxes or paying 10% or more in the country that is paying this pension, this is one of the main benefits, or I would say the big benefit of the NHR. Another benefit is those who have high value activities, which is a limited number of activities, such as professors, architects, those who have IT professions and some other professions, but it's a limited type of activities. They may benefit from a 20% flat tax rate, but this is only in respect to their income generated in Portugal. A third benefit of the NHR, which is quite important, is it makes more automatic and efficient the mechanisms to avoid double taxation. So if you have foreign passive income, generally with the NHR, it should be automatically exempted from paying taxes here if you are paying if you are paying taxes in the country that pays this type of income. That is, for instance, if you are a Frenchman, you come to Portugal, if you have rentals, royalties, dividends in your country of origin, if you are an NHR holder, you should be automatically exempted from paying taxes here if you have the NHR. So it makes the mechanisms to avoid double taxation more efficient. But that doesn't mean that if you are not an NHR holder, you should never be double taxed, because Portugal has treaties in place to avoid double taxation, with over 80 countries. So there should always be a mechanism to avoid double taxation. So that being said, probably you would never, in such a situation, you should never be double taxed. Perhaps you'd have a less efficient mechanisms to avoid double taxation, but you would need to study what is your income situation, what is your tax situation, and analyze it, perhaps to create a solution to make it more tax efficient.
Okay, perfect. That explains a lot of things. So do you come across many misunderstandings about NHR, common misconceptions?
A lot. First of all, people don't think that Golden Visa, D7, NHR is the same thing.
Okay.
They don't see the difference. So I think it's important to explain. The Golden Visa, the D7 are visas that give you civil residency in Portugal, meaning the right to live, work, study in Portugal. So they are connected with immigration law. They allow you to live in the country. A completely different thing is the NHR, which are tax benefits related to tax law, although these two conceptions are interconnected. So, first of all, to apply for the NHR, the first step is you must be civil resident in Portugal. So you must be, or you are Portuguese and you have the right to live here, or you must be a visa holder. This is the first thing. So you have to be civil resident. You have to have, this will be the first step. You have to have the right to live, work, and study in Portugal. The second step is to become tax resident, which is interconnected with civil residency, but it's a different concept. It's a formal thing. You should become tax resident. A third thing is, after becoming a tax resident, you have until the 31st of March of the next year to apply for the NHR. So it's important to understand that a civil residency, a D7, and a golden visa, or a civil resident is a condition to apply for the NHR, but it's a different thing. One thing is immigration law, another thing is tax law. So they are interconnected, but they are different concepts. And once you get a golden visa or a D7, you don't benefit automatically for the NHR. You have to apply for it, and there is a strict timeline to apply. If you don't comply with that, you lose forever the possibility to apply again for the NHR. So this is a common misconception. Another misconception is people think they will be totally exempted from paying taxes here. And this is not the case. So there are these three main benefits: 10% for taxation in respect to the pensions that you receive being paid from abroad, 20% for income for high value activities related to income generated in Portugal, and an automatic exemption in Portugal in respect to foreign passive income, meaning rentals, royalties, dividends, but as long as you pay taxes in the country that pays this type of income. These are the three main benefits of the NHR. It's no more than this. So you may still have to pay taxes in Portugal, and you may still have to present a tax return in Portugal. So it doesn't exempt you totally from paying to present a tax return here. And it's important to take into account what I said previously, but I think it's worth repeating. You have to apply within the 31st of March after you become of the year you became tax resident. Otherwise, you lose forever the possibility to benefit for this 10-year period tax benefit. So these are the most important misconceptions, but there are some other misconceptions. As it is the non-habitual tax regime, some people didn't understand that this was applicable for those who are resident in Portugal. So it's not applicable for non-residents, it's only applicable for residents, because at this point, you can only get tax registered in Portugal if you show that you are a visa holder or a Portuguese or an European that is entitled to live here. So this is quite important. So this is a benefit that only residents can apply for. Another thing, some people didn't understand if there was a minimum amount so they could apply for the NHR. There is no minimum amount. The only requirements are you have to be tax resident in Portugal, and you in the previous 5 years you cannot be have been tax resident here. These are the two main requirements for the NHR, and I think in respect to this, there were several misconceptions and clarification, and even after more than 10 years, people still are a little bit confused about this.
Okay, yes, I see a lot of similar questions coming through with people saying, you know, I'm still living somewhere else and I want to get NHR. But it sounds like the first step is to find a way of moving to Portugal. If you are European, you would be able to move much easier. But if you're from outside of the EU, you would apply for a visa like the D7 or Golden Visa. And those are visas, whereas the NHR, even though it sometimes seems like a visa, it's not. It's a tax regime, which is a completely different thing. Because I think I also see that some people saying, I don't want to move to Portugal on the Golden Visa, I want to move on the NHR, and that in itself is not actually a visa. One question I had from that, Sandra, was moving on the D7 and moving, or a visa like the D7 or a digital nomad visa, would be a little different to the Golden Visa, if I understand correctly, because the Golden Visa only requires you to spend roughly 7 days per year in Portugal. How does that work with NHR? Could I just do 7 days or so of the year in Portugal and still apply for NHR?
No.
Okay.
I would say no, because the NHR requires you to be tax resident in Portugal.
Okay.
There are several criteria to consider tax resident. One of the most important criteria is to live 6 months in Portugal. But there are other criteria, such as in the future, the intention to live here and to move here. So I would say that the first thing to be tax resident, and according to tax laws and the tax law justice, to be tax resident, you should be resident in Portugal. So you should really, Portugal should be your home, and you should have your family life based in Portugal. This is one of the criteria to consider you tax resident in Portugal. So I would say that a golden visa holder that where Portugal is not your home, that would be more complicated. Those who are golden visa holders and move their life, center their life in Portugal, I think those qualify to become tax residents and qualify to apply for the NHR. I would not say that a person could not get this, but according even to the tax law justice, for you to be considered tax resident in Portugal, you should be resident in Portugal, and your family life should be centered in Portugal.
Okay, that's a really helpful distinction. So the first step is to move and become resident in Portugal. The next step is to apply for the NHR. But I guess this separates our webinar into two groups of people, because there are those people that either have already moved to Portugal in the last few months or are able to move very, very soon. And then there's another group of people who may not be able to move until next year, or they're in the process of applying. So let's start with the first group of people, the people who might have a chance of applying for NHR before it ends. And it sounds to me like it definitely is going to end from what you're saying.
Yes, we don't know, because last time we had such an announcement, it was the golden visa would end. But then it took much longer to end than what they said. And in the end, it didn't end. So the real estate investments are no longer an opportunity, or any real estate related investments are no longer an opportunity for golden visa purposes. But then again, the golden visa is still here. So we don't know exactly if this will come into force, but I believe probably yes. But we don't even know if there will be a political veto or a constitutional veto. So it might take longer, as it happened with the golden visa, to the new law to enter into force. So the government announced that no, so those who are already here, are resident here, they are entitled to they should apply immediately, and they should move forward immediately, because the government said that they are entitled to apply for the NHR. Those who want to move to Portugal, I think they should move, because probably it will take a little bit longer than what the government is saying, and perhaps they may have the opportunity to apply for the NHR. But I also would like to state that there are other benefits other than the NHR, and if the person decided to move to Portugal, probably you lead a safer life, a happier life, less stressed life. So, and there are also other benefits, and we may have additional benefits in the future. So the fact that they can no longer apply for the NHR should not be a reason not to move here, because I believe that perhaps in the future, as we had restrictions with the golden visa, probably we will have more restrictions with the D7, which was quite a low requirement visa in terms of financial possibilities or financial means. So I think in the future, everything will be more complicated, because definitely Europe doesn't want Portugal to be an open doors to foreigners, for people outside the European world.
Yes, just having looked at some of the other visas in Europe, I know Spain has one that's aimed at retirees. The income that you need for that is much, much higher than it is in Portugal. And that's Spain, which is right next door. So I think if you are wanting to get into Europe, and so many people are, for the factors you talk about, Sandra, safety and better quality of life, Portugal is the way to do it.
And I will say the Portuguese are extremely welcoming, are very welcoming people, and are very kind and I'm being attacked with what I will say. I will be very provocative. I just had some vacation in Barcelona, which I love. I love the architecture, the Picasso things. It was fantastic from that point of view. But one thing, we are much nicer than them. Are much nicer than them. We are much more tolerant. We are, the Portuguese are the kind of persons that we are happy to help and to assist and to be kind, and we do like to help people, which is other our neighbors are a little bit different, perhaps more efficient, perhaps more, their economy is better than ours, but they are not as kind, as friendly as the Portuguese.
Okay, so the headline is move to Portugal while the D7 is still an option, and I think some of the other visas like the D2 are a little bit tied to that minimum income of 760 per month. And what we've seen over the past year or so does sort of suggest that Portugal is moving away from making it such an easy place. We've had changes to the Golden Visa, changes to the NHR, the Digital Nomad Visa, which came out. It now has a much, much higher requirement than other visas. I think you, Sandra, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just a little over 3,000 per month compared to less than 1,000 per month.
Yes, it's 3,040 euros. So it's for Portuguese minimum wages or salaries. So it's a huge difference. One is 760 euros per month, and another one is 3,040 euros. But I think Portugal will head in this way. So the financial requirements for visa will be more demanding in the future. So I think definitely for pensionists, who want to move to Portugal and want to take advantage of the D7, this is the time to do it. This is the time to do it, and they may even have the additional benefit to take advantage of the D7, of the NHR. But even if they don't, the information I have from US clients, for instance, I think they are exaggerating a little bit, but they tell that other than gasoline and some electronics, everything is normally half the price what it is in the States. And for instance, in terms of healthcare, they tell me about 1/10. I cannot believe, but they tell me about 1/10, and a system, a healthcare system, even the private one, that is much more devoted to the ill, much more devoted to clients, and have a much more human side than healthcare in the US. This is what they are reporting to me. So I'm always every day learning from them. So, and I think this is quite an advantage. I think we also took I have a client that has diabetes type 1, and she doesn't pay a penny in Portugal in related to her condition, diabetes type 1, whereas in the States she used to pay 1,000 euros per month in related to her conditions. And we know in the States there are people dying because they cannot afford insulin. So this is we the Portuguese have many critics to our national healthcare system, which are justified, but still there could be, it could be much worse. So this is still a great benefit. Other conditions such as kidney problems, dialysis are still participated by the state. And we have also a good oncological system, although they don't have that many vacancies, but we still have a system. I think if the government, I think it would be important for the government to use the money from the foreigners to invest better in the healthcare system, which is, it's not perfect, but it still has some interesting benefits for foreigners.
Yes, absolutely. I think there I mean, for me personally, I've always lived in Europe, and I can't imagine living in a system where you don't have that safety net. Even, you can get private health insurance if you want and
Yes.
use the private hospitals in Portugal, but you always have the public healthcare system to fall back on. And so, especially as
And
you
I
get
think
older.
interesting as a relatively poor country, Portugal, we rank 12th in worldwide in terms of healthcare, which is the quality of our doctors is very good, and the quality of the private hospitals. We have KUF, we have fantastic, very modern. We have Luz, we have very good private hospitals with last generation equipment in Portugal. And I think this is quite, in terms of healthcare, this is very good and very important, and much more affordable than in the States. For instance, with something like 100 euros, you
Mhm.
can get a card from one of these private hospitals, and you have something like 2-3 consultations for free and discount in every treatment, which is significant. 100 euros per year. This is
That
significant. And we have healthcare insurance that do not exclude pre-existing conditions and do not have age limits, which some of our US clients, they say, for now, we won't leave Medicare because we would not be able to enter again if we wanted. But after some years, in the end, they quit Medicare because they understand that Portugal is definitely their home, and they don't need it. But this is also very important.
okay. So
Very,
so
yes.
try and get to Portugal while you can, just in case there are any changes to things like the D7. Um, so let's see, what can we talk about next? I think we should talk about the actual law, because I know there's a lot of information flying around on the internet at the moment, and you have actually read the law. So what has been proposed in terms of what's going to go and what might come in instead?
Technically, it's not yet a law.
Okay.
It's still a bill, it's still a project, and we don't know what will be the final wording and whether this will be approved or not, or if it will have to have amendments or changes because of the interference of our president. So it's still a project.
Mm-hmm.
What it says, I think there will be an NHR for innovative persons and scientific researchers. We will have to wait and see to know more details how people could qualify to be considered innovative and scientific researchers, but those would, according to the project, will benefit from a 20% flat tax rate in respect to income generated in Portugal. We had previously also a program called Regressar, Return. This program was, the goal of this program was to make Portuguese that left because of the crisis of lack of job or economic opportunities that went abroad, to make them come back. And they would benefit for some time of a 50% discount in terms of income tax rate. So they will have a benefit of 50%, which is huge. But according to the wording of this project, and although the program is still called Regressar, so return, so it looked that it's aimed for the Portuguese or those who were registered in Portugal, left and would come back, the wording of this project is not limited for those who were previously tax residents in Portugal. So we will have to understand what the government wants and how the end wording of the law will be. But according to what is said now, I think there might be a possibility that foreigners may benefit for that move to Portugal for a 50% discount in terms of tax rates. But I think this at this point, we don't know for sure. And we will have to see the concrete law, the final wording, to understand if this was a mistake or a lapse of this is what the government wants to do. We will have
Okay.
to wait and see. There's still a lot of uncertainty. What we know for sure is those who already applied for the NHR have their rights protected. this is clear. No doubts, it could not be another way in a state of law. It is possible to apply until the 31st of December. The government also says that those who by the 31st of December were visa holders will have the opportunity to apply until the 31st of December 2024. So, but at this point, I admit that there might be delays in respect to this. So those who would like to benefit from the NHR should start their visa process right away, so they would have a chance to apply for the NHR. This would be my advice.
Okay, so I think what I'm getting from you is that people should make the move to Portugal as soon as possible. If they can do it by the 31st of December this year, they will be able to take advantage of the NHR as it exists. If they don't get in, then it's very possible that there are going to be new things coming in to replace NHR. Some of them, it sounds like they could be good if that's not a mistake.
Yes, it seems but we don't know at this point. No. So those that would like to apply for the NHR, move quickly and move fast, that you may get the chance. But I think in the end, it's not the only motivation to move to Portugal. There are other advantages to Portugal, but those who want to apply should move as fast as they can.
Okay, perfect. And I think it is better just to take advantage of the NHR as it exists already, because that that's certain, because it's already in law. There's no point trying to gamble and hope that things will come in to replace it, because that's not a certainty.
Yes, there's uncertainties in terms of specificities, regulation, who would qualify and be considered scientific research or would be related to innovative projects, and there will be discretionary powers from the administrative authorities, and we will have to understand very well how this will operate from a practical point of view. So I think those who want to move to Portugal should do it now and should take advantage of the NHR. I, as a disclaimer, perhaps we don't cover all your questions. For sure, we don't. I think from the tax point of view, it's very important to understand one's concrete situation, even to create a solution that is more tax efficient. But I think call us. I think I didn't talk with James, but I think we can do a quarter of an hour consultation for the first 50 persons that reach out to us, where we will try to clarify their doubts in respect to the NHR and this subject. And we'll also, if a person has a doubt in respect to visas or anything, we may also cover that.
Okay, fantastic. So let's see if I'm going to put your email address. There's already people saying they want to be in the first 50. Let's see if we can share your contact details in the group chat so that everybody has access to that, because I know 15 minutes can be a good amount of time just to start to understand how NHR affects you, because it is a very individual thing. I was wondering also, because we're talking about trying to move to Portugal, if someone were to contact you today and say, I'm ready to apply for the D7 or the digital nomad visa or the golden visa, is it likely that they would be able to get in before the 31st of December or before one of the deadlines?
I would say it will be difficult.
Okay.
But at this point, we don't know exactly when the law will enter into force, whether there will be a political veto or something, as it happened with golden visa. But as I told you before, we expect the government to create additional difficulties in respect to the D7. So we do expect that it will be more complicated in the future, to apply for the D7. So those who want to apply, I urge them to do sooner than later. Definitely,
Okay.
because Portugal will aim for to get more perhaps digital nomads, scientific researchers will come in this direction. So I think, and it will not have such low financial requirements as they are having now. So I think this will be a last opportunity for those who also want a D7 visa.
Okay, so I would suggest then that people who would get in touch with you, not just about questions about NHR and all of that, but about the D7 and getting
Yes,
that
and the
application in
visas,
as
yeah.
soon as possible.
Okay, people can reach out to us if they have any visa related question or any tax related question.
Okay, that is good to know, and I imagine it's a little unsettling for those that have maybe been taking their time thinking about moving to Portugal, but it sounds like there really is starting to be some idea of a possible deadline in the future, particularly for those who are retirees and who have lower incomes. This is the time to really get all your ducks in a row and get that application ready for the D7. So let's see if we can have some more questions. I want to talk a little bit about other tax benefits of moving to Portugal, because there are some things that the NHR doesn't cover, which people often get confused by. One is things like capital gains, as far as I understand it. And there are benefits of moving to Portugal, such as the lack of the wealth tax, as far as I understand it. So perhaps you could talk about those two topics and
Yes, in terms of, I think Portugal has other tax benefits. So, for instance, we don't have a proper wealth tax. We don't have the inheritance tax for direct heirs and spouses. We also, in terms of real estate property, especially if you buy something used, you don't have real estate. The real estate taxes that you pay for the city council is less than 1%, and sometimes it's a tenth of it because it's based on the tax value of the properties, which many times it's much less than the transactional value of the properties. I have been talking about this example, but I have an apartment that is worth something like 500,000 euros, and I pay 500 euros into installments, and this is very low in terms of real estate taxation worldwide, and this is a great benefit. So in that point, it's also worth to invest in Portugal. And I will emphasize what our US clients have been saying. They say everything is at least half of what it costs in the US, and except for gasoline and electronics. And they told me that about the healthcare, the cost could be 1/10, and the service here is better, more human, more dedicated, definitely better and less money oriented. So I would say these are two major advantage. The last, I cannot emphasize much safety. I have teenage boys, and they can go out with their friends, and of course, teenage boys can always do stupid stuff. But then again, it's not. I don't fear a shooting, and I don't fear a shooting. I don't fear, and this is and me as I can go out with my friends, my women friends, and this is not a problem. We don't fear being assaulted. This is I believe a great benefit, and also family values, and a country that has proficiency in English and welcomes you. People like to be of assistance, people like to be helpful, and life is less stress. This client, one of ours that I talked about, she told me, I have much less stress and I reduce in half my insulin intake living in Portugal. And this is great. I think this is it's leading a good life.
I agree. One other thing that I've noticed people from the US comment a lot on is just buying groceries in Portugal, it seems like the cost, and from when I visited the US, it's so much more expensive there, and people feel like they're paying so much money to get, a fruit or a vegetable that hasn't had a lot of chemicals and all sorts of
Yes.
things put into it. And in Portugal, good quality produce, particularly fruit and veg, is readily available and very, very affordable in comparison.
Yes, and if you know the places, you can even just near Lisbon go to some markets and people still sell what they produce. And you can do that in Sintra, and you can do if you know the places just outside of Lisbon. So you still can buy things that were not genetic modified. And at this point, we know how healthy it is. On the flip side of that, I have also many US clients and many British clients reporting that internet here is better, paid internet is better than in the US in London. So I think this is quite important. And also from a strategic point of view and from a mentality point of view, I think the Portuguese are quite open. We were in Africa for ages, for centuries. We commingled with the population. We were in India, and we also connected very well with the population. So we have a very good connection with Africa. And so I think and also from a strategic point of view, being in Portugal, it's you can jump in a place and go within 2 hours. You can be in London, in Austria, in Paris, in Rome, which is quite interesting too. And after, and this is, I think this is something that will be modified in the future, because most countries have more demanding requirements to acquire citizenship. So after living 5 years here, and if you do have a certificate for the language and meet other requirements, you can apply for citizenship. And this is this door to citizenship. It's also a door to be an European passport holder, which means that you can choose to live, work, or study in any European country. And this is huge. And I believe that for sure, sooner or later, and perhaps sooner than later, the government will make it more complicated. It will initiate by creating some bureaucratic difficulties, as they did with the Golden Visa, but then probably they will also change the law. So for being having the opportunity to be a European passport holder, I think it should make sense to move sooner than later for to a visa if this is what you want.
I think so, because again, having compared Portugal to other European countries, the period of time is a lot less, first of all, that you need to spend in Portugal before you can apply for citizenship in comparison
Yeah.
to, say, Spain.
Mm.
And then other European countries often have a higher language requirement. So in Portugal, I think it is just the A2, and I believe you only
Yeah.
have to get a 55% pass or
Yeah.
higher. So
Yes.
it's achievable.
Yes, it's achievable, of course.
Okay, so I think, yeah, just from what I'm hearing from you, there are changes to the NHR regime. We've already seen changes to the Golden Visa. It sounds like in the future, the government could introduce changes to things like the D7 and to the speed at which people can get citizenship. So now really is the last moment to get moving to Portugal, because I think the secret about Portugal is definitely out. I meet people from all over the world, and even if they haven't thought about Portugal, they know that this is become a popular place to move to for all of these reasons.
Yes, I always used to go a lot to conferences all over the world about arbitration and litigation. And I always had someone just murmuring and saying to me very slowly, and you know what? I know Portugal. I like sardines. I know the Portuguese wine, but I don't give it to anyone, just those who are really good persons and
Yeah.
connoisseurs. So I've met people just thrilled and interested in Portugal from all over the world.
Perfect. Well, I'm just going to quickly do a couple of questions, Sandra, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I know we've got a lot
Yes.
in the chat. Your team have been answering. They've already answered 60 of them, so they've been working very, very hard. And those that
Yes,
don't
we
get
have
answered,
Alexander and Cynthia, Alexander Paciencia and Cinta Mantinha, and I have to give a word to them because they are really very good professionals, and without them, this would not be possible.
absolutely. And I know when people get in contact with your company, it may be one of them that they will end up speaking to. So good to get those names out there.
Yes, you know, I still speak with a lot of persons because I think this is what I like most, to speak with persons. So this is not a big effort. I really like to, yes, to do what I do.
So and these are I don't want to put you on the spot too much with these questions, but just to give you an
Yes,
idea of some of the questions, some people are saying, let's say, for example, they had, you know, 30,000 a year as a pension or social
yes.
security from the US. Under
Mhm.
NHR, they would be taxed if they chose that at 10%. Is that correct? So they would have about
Yes,
3,000 euros tax.
yes.
If the NHR didn't exist, what sort of taxes would
It's
that look like?
difficult to say because it will depend if a person has a disability, if it have dependents or not. But for sure, I think I don't want the tax rates varies for 14.5 till 48. But I would say, I don't know for sure. We would have to see and we would have to know the specifics. But for sure, is more than the double. They would pay for sure more than the double if they didn't have the NHR. And what happens with US clients is normally US still taxes them because they tax based on citizenship and not based on residency. So, but Portugal, and so they don't have to pay in Portugal. This is what happens, but in Portugal, I would have to check and I will have to see the situation of the person. But for sure, it will be more than the double.
Okay.
But what I have been here also from US clients is we are sparing so much money. Life is much more affordable in Portugal. So there is also a flip side to this. So, but I would say that perhaps the person will be almost in the 30,000 in the 40% or something like that. But you would have to analyze the specifics. If a person, if the couple, if they have dependents, we would have to understand better the specifics.
Okay, so it sounds like the NHR regime is a little bit clear cut because it's just a percentage, whereas the standard rates, there seem to be more deductions.
I will definitely emphasize the benefit of the NHR for pensionists, for
Okay.
pension holders, paid by a foreign entity, because this is the criteria. And I would say in certain situation of foreign passive income, although for foreign passive income, there are other mechanisms, perhaps not as efficient as the NHR, but could also be beneficial and could also be used.
Okay. And suppose someone was a digital nomad type of person, let's say they worked in IT and could benefit from NHR, they would be looking at a 20% rate, assuming they were a high value activity. And would that be with Social Security as well?
No, Social Security is separated.
Okay.
Social Security is separated from tax benefits. So for sure, they would have to pay Social Security in Portugal. But for some from a decent income, 20% flat tax rate is very good. But
Yes.
perhaps an IT person, we don't know what the new law will entail, but perhaps this person might be considered a scientific research or be related to an innovative project and may also be able to apply and benefit from a 20% flat tax rate in the future in respect to income generated in Portugal. But at this point, we don't know.
Okay. It sounds like then that you would definitely advise people to take advantage of the NHR, but that it seems like people would you say that people's situations are very different, and that they would need to get individual advice?
I think so. I think people do need, because I think they have to address their specific tax situation. And in many times, it could make sense to create specific solutions to make their situation more tax efficient.
Okay. So I think then people should really take advantage of speaking to you and your team if they want to be in that first group of 50 people. I've put the email address in there. I'm going to put it in again just in case anybody didn't see it. But if you just email that, you can get a 15-minute consultation to begin with Sandra and get an idea of what your tax situation would look like under NHR and what it would look like if it was in a different regime.
Okay. Yes. For those who we will be waiting for you and eager to answer your questions. And if you want to move forward, to move very quickly in order to get you the more chances possible to have a successful application.
Okay, and I've seen a couple of questions from people asking about whether this will be recorded. It is being recorded, and so anybody who is registered now, I will send the link out to the YouTube video when that goes live. So don't worry about that. You will be getting a link probably tomorrow or once the video finishes processing. There is a question then about capital gains taxes. Does NHR affect that?
It should affect, because in a general way, foreign passive income would be automatically exempted from paying taxes here. So with the NHR, if you have this income from a foreign country and you pay taxes there, you should be automatically exempted. But it's important to bear in mind that there are other conventions to avoid double taxation that have similar solutions. So in that respect, in many cases, you would not end up paying taxes here, and you should never be double taxed. So I think we would have to analyze your concrete situation, because even this general rule of the foreign passive income, it's not an universal rule. There are exceptions. So I think it would be important to address the concrete situation to know how it will be, what would be the solution with the NHR or without the NHR.
Okay, perfect. And there is a very good question there. Someone is asking if they're going to have this 15-minute chat with you, if they're going to prepare for it, what information should they come? So I guess a list of their different income types to begin with.
Yes, I think if they could do a summary of their situation and their objectives in a previous email, which we normally read, and we ask people to do their detailed situation and present themselves in an email, and then we could focus in the meeting. We would know what the questions will be, and we could focus very concretely in answering them and providing useful information. If we had a presentation in an email from the persons, who are them, what they do, what is their intention, why are they moving, what's their income, what are their concrete questions. If we have this email, then our session could be much useful and much effective.
Okay, that sounds like a very good way to get the most out of that 15-minute consultation. So that's a very good idea. Thank you to the person that asked that. Sandra, is there anything else that you would like to point out with regards to the NHR?
I think it's a pity that's going away, and perhaps especially for pensionists, or I would urge, or for IT persons, I would urge a person, and for the Europeans, they are in good conditions to apply. For the Europeans that want to move here, as they don't really need a visa, just do the process of registration. I think they could perfectly still get the NHR application. So I would say to move forward a ZAP. And for the Frenchman, this is a huge thing. This can mean thousands of euros per month in taxation. So I would urge the Europeans to move as fast as they can. I would also, the non-Europeans, I would urge them to move fast, because I think the D7 will have more complicated requirements and more demanding requirements. And it's important to notice that the legislator doesn't even need to change the law to implement a more demanding requirements, because the financial requirements of the D7 are not written. This is the interpretation the authorities are doing. What does it mean to have financial means? So they don't need to change the law to say, no, from now on, it's not 760, it will be more, because this is not written. Has been the interpretation that the authorities have been doing of the requirement, financial requirements to live here, financial means.
Okay. That is a good point, actually. It is down to interpretation there. So definitely get that application in as soon as possible. Let's see if we have some more questions that we can answer. And Sandra, I'm conscious of your time as well, because I know it's very precious. So you can let me know when you
let me just say a final thing. We do like to work with you, and I think it's very interesting the work we are providing. Then you are providing such important content and real content to and transparent and honest content to so many people, which they do cherish. So they, when people talk to us, they always evoke that they really enjoyed the honest and transparent and direct information you provide. So we really like to do this with you. And I would like to challenge you to do something perhaps in early December about the new law, what the new law would say, what will be the situation in respect to the new law, and also about citizenship, because we have also, there are lots of questions, lots of doubts, lots of that people don't know if they can apply, how can they apply, and I think that could be useful for your and for our audience too.
Absolutely, I completely agree. I think for so many people, particularly coming from the US and other countries, one of the main goals is to get citizenship from Portugal. So it's very important that I think that we talk about that, because one of the things we've talked about in previous webinars is the need to sort of create ties to Portugal. There's a lot of things that people don't realize they should be doing right from the moment they move to Portugal, which is to get ready to pass that exam, and also to start creating ties with the Portuguese community, and to show that you really are living there and making an effort to make a life there. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Yes. Okay. We would advise people to learn Portuguese prior to coming, because I think then it would be easier. Otherwise, English will overcome. Everybody will address them in English, and they would not have the opportunity to start speaking in Portuguese.
I completely agree. It's very easy in the first few weeks. You start to meet people. If they start speaking with you in English, that's going to be how they continue for forever.
Yes, but you already have some knowledge of the language. It might be easier.
Absolutely. There's a few people that are in the process of the D7 application at the moment. So they've maybe had their visa granted, but they don't have the CEF appointment. So they're in these in-between stages. Do you know how the NHR ruling will affect them?
We really, perhaps they will have the chance still to apply, because what the new law says, the project says, is if until the 31st of December, they get the visa, then they will have until the 31st of March to apply. So they might, if they receive the resident permit card, they might be in a condition to then become tax resident and then apply for the NHR. So I think that they might have a chance. All the Portugal is the country, as I have normally say, it's a country of unstandardized bureaucracy and timeline. So you never know how soon they will receive, how soon their process will develop. But I would say many of these people might have the serious chance to apply for the NHR.
Do you think the fact, because you mentioned their unstandardized bureaucracy, do you think the fact that they can show that they were in the process of moving to Portugal and making that effort will benefit them?
What the law says is those who are visa holders by 31st of December. So I think it's not, and I think it's better to have a clear law. It's not goodwill, it's not the process is going, they have to be visa holders. So they should have received the resident permit card. I would say this is the definitive moment where they are visa holders, but we can study if they can be considered visa holders by the time of the CEF appointment. But I would say the law is quite clear. You have to be a visa holder by 31st of December, but we still have 2 months to go. And then you can apply until 31st of March 2024.
Okay. And I will say as well that working with someone such as yourself is a much more surefire way to actually get that application improved in time. A lot of people who do it themselves end up making a mistake and then having to go backwards and forwards to have a repeal.
Yes, at least people report us horror stories in both in the visa process, but also in these tax processes. Many of our current clients missed the opportunity to apply of the NHR just because they didn't do on time.
Okay. And those that do make it in on time or that already have NHR, is it correct that they are guaranteed that nothing's going to happen, that 10 years is guaranteed for them?
It's written specifically in the law that they will protect and respect those who were already granted the NHR. This is clear, black and white in the law, as it was in the last law in respect to the golden visa. Those who already applied are completely safe, completely protected in respect of their rights, in respect to the renewals for them and for the family members.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know, because I know there were a few people being a little concerned that that something might change for them, but it sounds like they are protected by the law.
Yes, definitely. Completely protected.
Okay. I'm going to give you another question. How does savings factor in with NHR? If someone has savings in another country, would they be taxed on them, and would the NHR protect them?
If they receive interest on that income, they should be protected.
Okay.
Because this is considered foreign passive income. So being foreign passive, so it's income they don't have to work for. And so as a general rule, they should be protected and should be automatically exempted from paying taxes here, as long as they pay their taxes in the country that pays these interests.
Okay.
But normally Portugal at this point is not checking that. But this is the rule.
And if they've already paid tax on that income elsewhere, for example, if it came from a salary and it's now sitting in savings in another country, should they expect that when they move that money to Portugal that it won't be taxed because it's already been taxed elsewhere?
What is tax is the interests. It's not having money. Having money, if you don't, in Portugal, because there is no wealth tax. If you have money sitting in the bank without interests, you're not taxed. You are taxed on the income, on the passive income that you receive on these savings.
Okay, perfect. That is really good to know. We have a lot of questions here. So many of them are very, very specific. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to say, because I really do encourage people to get in touch with you, and I know we'll pass on the details of these questions to your team so that you can answer them. But is there anything else that you would like to say on NHR? Well, how about I'll ask you one question while you think about it.
Because I cannot see this chat. I don't know why I cannot see the chat. Yes.
Someone's asking if it's worth registering for NHR if they don't have a large income.
If they receive a pension, even if they don't have a large income, for sure. Because for sure it will be more than 10%. If not, it will depend. But if they are if they will develop a high value activity in Portugal, perhaps have, even if it's not a very high income, 20% flat tax rate is very low, because our tax rates can go to 14.5 till 48%. So if they have a high value activity, if it might be beneficial, and if they have foreign passive income, it also might be a benefit. But for pensionists or retirees, definitely, if they have they intend to develop a high value activity, means IT, professor, psychologists, or some limited activities, it also might be useful to apply for the NHR. It will depend on the concrete situation.
Okay, and let's suppose that someone moves to Portugal and they are in a job that isn't considered a high value activity, but they register for NHR anyway. And maybe in 5 years' time, they decide, you know what, I'm going to become an IT person or something like that. Could they take advantage of it then?
No,
Okay.
I would say no, because they have a timeline.
Yeah.
So you have to, once you leave 6 months here, you should become resident. Once you have you become tax resident, you have until the 31st of March of the next year to apply, and then it's gone forever.
Okay.
If you apply on the 1st of April, it's gone. You cannot do it.
Okay. So you need to make sure that you've applied within the deadline.
But what I would say is, probably in the future, if within 5 years you create an innovative IT project, then it could be the government may co-finance, or the European Union, or there may be, I think there will be additional incentives for those who will develop innovative projects here.
Okay. Good to know. It does seem to be like the government is moving toward in this direction, as you mentioned earlier, towards more people from IT and more people in the sort of scientific and research areas. That's who they're really looking to attract in the future.
Yes, and also those who are relocating to remote areas, and people will have already have some incentives when moving to remote areas. And I think there will be also, and this is something that could be analyzed and studied and perhaps even negotiated with some city councils. People who go to remote areas may have great benefits from city councils. Some city councils offer very interesting incentives and tax benefits to firms that centered their activity in their domain.
Okay. There's a question here on whether a 12-month rental lease would be considered making someone resident. So if someone rents a property, or buys a property, is that enough to be considered resident, or is there something else they need to do?
You should have your family life centered here. Portugal should be your home.
Okay.
So if you buy a house, but you don't live here, your kids don't attend school here, you don't work here, you don't spend at least 6 months here, you don't reside here, you don't pay taxes here, you should not be resident in Portugal. Portugal is your family life centered in Portugal. This should be the criteria, and not perhaps leasing a property for 12 years is one of the signs that show the intent to live here for longer periods. And this is one of the criteria to consider you tax resident. But it's not a criteria that will work alone. If you rent an apartment for 12 years, for 12 months here, but you are still living in London, and your kids are attending school there, and you work there, and you spend a few months here, you are not resident just because you leased an apartment for 12 months. This could be a sign, but would not be sufficient to fulfill the criteria or showing the intent to move here and really residing here.
Okay, so it sounds like, when your main address and your entire life is in Portugal, that's when you become resident.
Yes, this is the criteria. And according to residential visas, in a 2-year period, you should not be absent from the country more than 6 months in a row, or 8 months total. but until now, the authorities have not interpreted these requirements in a very strict way. So if you have to leave the country for professional reasons or to attend a family member, this has been perfectly accepted for the authorities, and they only check that by the time you renew the visas.
Okay, that is good to know.
Okay.
So there was one question there. You had mentioned about someone being a visa holder for the D7. When you say visa holder, do you mean, because people get the visa initially when they apply from their home country, such as the US, and then they get the residence permit after their CEF appointment, if I'm correct.
Yes.
What
Yes.
Can you sort of explain what you mean by visa holder? What point along the
I would
process?
say that you are a visa holder when you have the resident permit card, because
Okay.
when you go to the consulate or the embassy for the appointments in your home country or country of residency, they will issue a visa for 4 months to come to Portugal and to end the process. But this visa, this intention, the content, the reason why you have this visa is to come to Portugal and to end the process. But in Portugal, they will check again if you fulfill the criteria. So you only have a visa and the right to reside here after the CEF appointment.
Okay.
The first visa is an instrumental visa, I would say. The one that you receive in embassy or the consulate, or it's a instrumental visa to come to Portugal and end the process. But you, in theory, the visa, the final visa can be denied.
Okay, I see. So the permit that you get after the CEF appointment, that's the one that really matters.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, Sandra, I just want to say thank you for all your time today. We have covered a lot of ground, and so I really appreciate that, and I know that people do too. We have a lot of questions here still, but what I'm encouraging people to do is just to get in touch with you, because some of them are very specific, and I've tried to cover off the more general ones. But the other ones, they really need to speak to you to get that individual advice. Any closing words on NHR and anything else that you would like to say?
So I would, as a final word, I would say those who already apply are completely protected. It's still possible to apply. And those who are interested in the regime, they should move ASAP, as those who are interested in the D7. As a final word, I think Portugal is a great country to live. And in the end, it should not be the NHR the only reason why you're moving to Portugal.
I completely agree. I think that's a really nice way to end it, Sandra. And when we speak to you next, hopefully it'll be sometime around December, we'll be talking about citizenship. Hopefully everybody here will have got their applications in through you, and we can talk about how to start that process of getting ready to apply for Portuguese citizenship.
Okay, thanks so much for having me, James.
You're very welcome.
All for our attendees, I'm sorry if I don't covered all your questions, but I will be more than willing to address them specifically if you reach out to us, and we'll be ready to help and to assist you.
Thank you so much, Sandra. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.